design question, because we can talk about it with the.
Yeah, well, we're not gonna have a chance to discuss it, because we're all planning how we're gonna finance it.
Okay.
Well, why don't you present it?
Yes.
So the phase one project is going to address the pavers within the plaza and the sidewalk conditions, which are severely deteriorated, have numerous trip hazards, and really should be remedied as quickly as possible. It's going to reconstruct this path here, which will connect to the ADA path that was built as part of the Blackwell House project, and it's going to construct the dog run here in this location. The area of the dog run will have a fence in addition to the existing fence and planted materials that are going to be a buffer, a visual buffer between the dogs and the adjacent playground. We will have a vestibule that has a spring-loaded gate here that allows for access both through the park and from the promenade, and a second gate here, which is spring-loaded, that will allow for the small dogs to come into this area of the run, and the large dogs to come into this area of the run.
And that path in the middle is ADA.
The path in the middle is ADA. There will be an ADA path so someone in a wheelchair can get to this area here and here within the small and large dog runs. And there will be water so that there can be cleaning. It is going to be synthetic turf with some drainage, and the trees are all going to remain to provide shading. The second phase of the project, which is still in design development and will be finalized later this year, is going to provide improvements to the path. We're looking at a larger play area here, and improvements to the drainage in the basketball court. So there will be some work here that will provide a greater distance, but we just have not finalized those designs yet. We did feel it was important, yes, to get the dog run, but also to make these improvements to the sidewalk and the plaza area. Many of the pavers are broken, they pose trip hazards, and it is eliminating a risk and a condition that potential, if someone would fall and injure themselves, would be a greater liability to the company.
And we've had a number of lawsuits arising out of trips on the pavers in front of Blackwell. So that piece is important, and I think the idea of reconnecting the fountain, I think everyone that I've spoken to, and again, when we went through the community walkthrough, was excited about reconnecting the fountain.
These are all good things. Someone has to convince me why the dog run should be right where it is.
Well, could you speak on that, because John, I know you worked for New York City Parks, so can you give us a sense of your experience?
Yes, my experience, there are hundreds of dog runs in New York City parks, and we have put, New York City Parks has installed dog runs in historic properties like Washington Square Park, like Carl Schurz Park in Central Park, Madison Square Park, East River Park across the river, and currently in design, Teddy Roosevelt Park, which is right near the Museum of Natural History. There are standard guidelines, many of which have been used here, most of which have been used here, that provide protections both for the dog user and the human user, whether it be a toddler or an older child. Those cues are to provide the self-locking spring gates, to provide vegetative matters, whether it be shrubs that can then be denser to separate the dogs and the humans a little better visually, to provide the vestibule that is self-locking, to separate the large and the dog run and small dogs so that you are protecting both the dog and the walker.
How does the separation that we have here compare with the separation in these other New York City parks that you've been?
It's consistent with the guidelines that have been used throughout the city.
But did the guidelines say there should be X amount of separation, or do
It doesn't prescribe, it's best practices. There aren't guidelines, I'll rephrase that. It's best practices. It doesn't provide that there be specific dimensions. You want to have an area that in the vestibule that's at least 100 square feet or so that if a dog happens to come out of the pen and is not on leash yet, they can be protected.
That Rachel raised. If her son is in the park at the same time that people are with their dogs, is there sufficient separation to address an issue that, that child may legitimately have?
Yes, in this case, the fence that Rachel referred to, there's an existing fence here Within the dotted line, there is a second fence that will surround the dog park. And there's approximately 3 feet between the 2 fences that will be densely planted with plant material so that there would be visual separators from the dog and the human. So that would hopefully protect those people that do have a fear. The initial location of the dog run was here, and you can see that that's adjacent to the water play. Typically, the activities around water play tend to be more active than when you're going on a play equipment and a play unit. And you would want to keep that separate. It was going to be a much smaller dog run. It was going to be something that was a very steep slope, and relocating the dog run to the northern part of the park allows us in phase 2 to have greater ADA access and to properly grade this path, which was a little bit of a problem. When the dog run was here, it was going to have to be a little bit of a zigzag and a ramp, which is more costly to build. So moving the dog run here, providing the proper vegetation, maintaining the trees, and adding the vestibule and separating the dogs goes a long way to best practices to coexist in an active park like this. These are some of the guidelines that were used in Washington Square Park, which is a very densely, heavily used park, both for the college students, the local kids. There are many activities. I think it's a sound design and a reasonable solution in an area where we have growing population.
I tell you, it's one of my favorite places to go. I'm trying to figure out where the dog run is in that park, because it's nowhere
It's
near.
nowhere near the playground. I know all the parks in New York City.
Yeah, I'm just saying that that's not, it is not near the playground. In Madison Square Park, is also on, the playground is on the other side, so there's a large walkway, so that's all I just wanted to say on that.
Right, when your other question about what rules are in place, well, it's where I asked about the walkway, because there are rules about that, as far as if you have straight-willy gates, it has to be a certain width so people in wheelchairs can get through, and that's why I said it was ADA compliant. I was looking online, there wasn't anything that says that the park had to be a certain distance away from anything specific that said it had to be a certain specific distance away. So that I haven't seen any actual number. It could be in a reg somewhere, but I haven't seen it. But the walkways do have regs as far as the grade and type of gates and how wide it has to be and all the other stuff like that.
I think that's the
I can say from experience of developing some, working with some developers and some other projects where there are dog runs are involved, there are no specific setback requirements, and they can be, and they have been in different locations, especially Long Island city areas, specifically adjacent to, playgrounds, adjacent to the fields and to court spaces. So this is any different than those design spaces that has been promulgated throughout other portions of the city.
It's our usual question out late, so we're gonna have all the water supplies and hoses and stuff like that. We're gonna have all our appropriate backflow filters.
Yes.
Just checking.
All right, anybody else have anything? So I'm assuming the sense of the board is we're going to, even though you're not asking for a resolution here, but we're basically telling you that you're authorized to go ahead with this, assuming that the 10% that David and Mike mentioned, right, that
Yes.
that is not exceeded,
Yes.
okay? Is the board okay with that?
Yes.
If you would like to know what the estimate is
Yeah, we can
from
do
our
it
owners, or we
separately.
can do it in executive session.
I don't think we need an executive session for that. Okay.
One thing before you go, Jonna, I appreciate the webpage where you have the project reporting. If you could enhance it by linking drawings, sketches, any available material to ongoing projects, I think that would be very useful.
Thank